The gleaming spires of Galactic Central University stretched toward the stars, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the light of 3 moons hanging in the purple sky. Inside the grand reception hall, beings from 100 different worlds milled about, their voices a chorus of clicks, whistles, and translated speech. The air buzzed with anticipation as they awaited the arrival of someone, or rather, something, that most had only seen in educational videos. Hye-Jin Park stepped through the transport pad, her 2 bags clutched tightly. The assembled crowd fell silent, many of them instinctively shifting backward. Even though they had known a human was coming, seeing one in person was entirely different. She stood taller than most, her solid frame a testament to evolving on a world that many considered impossible to survive on. Professor Malt watched from the front of the gathering, noting how the human's eyes scanned the room with remarkable speed. Another reminder of her species' predatory origins. But then Hye-Jin smiled, and the tension in the room seemed to melt away like morning frost. The Floatarian students, crystalline beings who floated just above the ground, had been particularly worried about hosting a Deathworlder. Their delicate structures could shatter from a too firm handshake. Yet as Hye-Jin approached their group, they noticed how carefully she moved, each step measured and deliberate. "Remarkable," whispered one of the senior professors to another. "She's already adjusting her movements to account for the different species around her. Look how she's making herself appear smaller." The university had spent months preparing for this moment. They had reinforced the furniture in Hye-Jin's quarters to handle the increased gravity she required. The environmental controls in her living space had been modified to maintain the higher oxygen levels her species needed. Even the cafeteria had installed special food processors capable of preparing Earth-compatible meals. Professor Malt stepped forward, their iridescent skin shifting through colors that reflected their mix of excitement and apprehension. Standing before Hye-Jin, they towered over her by nearly 2 feet, their willowy forms swaying gently in the climate-controlled air. "Welcome to GCU," they said, their translator conveying the warmth in their native tongue. "We hope you'll find your stay both educational and comfortable." Hye-Jin surprised everyone by bowing deeply, a gesture that sent ripples of appreciative murmurs through the crowd. The display of cultural awareness and respect did not go unnoticed, especially by the more traditional faculty members. "Thank you for this opportunity," Hye-Jin replied, her voice clear and steady. "I look forward to learning alongside everyone." A young Floatarian named Prill drifted closer, their crystalline surface catching the light. "Is it true that you come from a planet with constant meteorological bombardment?" Hye-Jin laughed softly, careful to modulate her volume for the sound-sensitive species present. "You mean rain?" "Yes, water falls from our sky quite often. We actually find it soothing." The crowd pressed closer, their initial fear giving way to curiosity. Questions began flowing from all directions, about Earth's gravity, about human social structures, about their strange habit of sleeping horizontally. Hye-Jin answered each one patiently, her responses thoughtful and often touched with humor. Professor Malt observed as their new student expertly navigated the social waters. They had worried that a human might find it difficult to interact with such a diverse group of species, but Hye-Jin showed a natural talent for cross-species communication. As the reception continued, even the most skeptical faculty members had to admit that perhaps their fears about hosting a Deathworlder had been overblown. The human moved through the crowd with grace, showed genuine interest in other species' customs, and displayed none of the aggressive tendencies their research had warned them about. What none of them realized, as they watched Hye-Jin chat with a group of gaseous beings about their shared interest in mathematics, was that they were seeing only the beginning. The real surprises would start when they discovered how their new human student chose to relax after classes. For now, though, Hye-Jin was content to be the center of attention, fielding questions and making connections. She had prepared extensively for this moment, studying the various species she would encounter and their customs. It showed in every interaction, every careful movement, every thoughtful response. As the evening drew to a close, Professor Malt led Hye-Jin to her quarters, pointing out important locations along the way. The human listened attentively, asking intelligent questions about the university's layout and systems. When they reached her room, He-Jin turned to the professor with another respectful bow. "Thank you for making me feel so welcome," she said. "I know having a human here is a big change for everyone." Professor Malt's skin rippled with pleased colors. "You've already shown us that change can be a good thing, He-Jin Park. Rest well. Tomorrow, your real journey at GTU begins." Neither of them could have predicted just how true those words would prove to be. The second week at Galactic Central University brought new challenges for He-Jin Park, but not the academic kind she had expected. Her body hummed with restless energy, a familiar sensation that grew stronger with each passing day. While her mind remained engaged in fascinating classes about quantum physics and xenobiology, her muscles yearned for the release of physical activity. Walking through the university's recreational center, He-Jin's hopes quickly faded. The facility, though state-of-the-art by galactic standards, seemed more like a gentle rehabilitation center to her human perspective. She watched as various alien species engaged in what they considered exercise. Floating meditation pods, low-gravity resistance bands, and neural stimulation chambers. "Perhaps I could help you find something suitable," offered the recreation coordinator, a being made of shifting geometric patterns. "We have equipment designed for species from high-gravity worlds." He-Jin tried the suggested machines, but even at their highest settings, they provided little challenge. The intense resistance level felt like lifting empty cardboard boxes, and the high-speed treadmill moved at what humans would consider a casual walking pace. After several unsuccessful attempts with different equipment, He-Jin returned to her dorm, her muscles still coiled with unused energy. The common area in her temperature-controlled living space caught her attention. It was spacious, with smooth flooring and high ceilings, perfect for what she had in mind. Moving the furniture to the sides, He-Jin created an open space in the center of the room. The environmental controls automatically adjusted to her increased activity level, maintaining the perfect temperature and oxygen mix she needed. She began with simple stretches, her body finally relaxing as she moved through familiar motions. Unknown to He-Jin, her activities had drawn attention. The dorm's transparent walls, designed to promote community and openness among students, gave passing aliens a clear view of the humans' unusual behavior. A small group gathered in the corridor, watching with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Is she preparing for combat?" whispered a tentacled student to their companion. "No, look at her face," replied another. "She appears peaceful." Indeed, He-Jin's expression showed only concentration and contentment as she flowed through her warm-up routine. Her movements, precise and controlled, demonstrated years of training. To the watching aliens, it seemed like a strange dance, beautiful but hinting at hidden power. As He-Jin progressed to more dynamic exercises, the audience grew. Students from different species found themselves mesmerized by the display of human physical capability. They watched as she performed movements that seemed to defy their understanding of biomechanics, push-ups, squats, and burpees executed with fluid grace. Professor Malt, passing by on their way to evening lectures, paused to observe. Their iridescent skin flickered with rapid color changes as they processed what they were seeing. The human's relaxation activity appeared more strenuous than most species' emergency survival responses. He-Jin, lost in her workout, remained oblivious to her growing fame. Sweat glistened on her skin, another fascinating sight for species that regulated temperature through entirely different means. Her breathing, controlled and rhythmic, echoed in the quiet space. The workout intensified. He-Jin moved into a series of martial arts forms, her limbs cutting through the air with precision and power. The watching crowd grew larger, and whispers spread through the dormitory about the human's incredible display. "Are all humans capable of this?" asked a floating gas form being. "I heard they do this for enjoyment," responded a silicon-based student, their crystalline structure vibrating with excitement. As He-Jin completed her routine with a final set of cooling stretches, she finally noticed her audience. The corridor outside was packed with students, their varied forms pressed against the transparent walls. Rather than feeling embarrassed, she smiled and waved, causing a ripple of movement as some students waved back, while others quickly pretended they hadn't been staring. That evening, messages flew across the university's communication network. Videos of the humans' workout sessions spread from device to device, accompanied by excited commentary and questions. The faculty received numerous inquiries about human physical capabilities, and the xenobiology department began drafting a proposal for a new study. He-Jin, unaware of her sudden celebrity status, simply felt satisfied with finally finding a way to maintain her exercise routine. As she prepared for bed that night, she planned more workouts for the coming days, eager to keep her body and mind in balance. Little did she know that her simple desire to stay fit would soon transform the university's understanding of human recreation and challenge their preconceptions about what constituted relaxation for a Deathworlder. Word spread quickly through the halls of Galactic Central University about the humans' unusual activities. Students from every corner of known space gathered daily to watch He-Jin's training sessions, their numbers growing with each passing day. The corridor outside her common area became an unofficial observation point, filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Tech, a blue-scaled student from an aquatic world, pressed closer to the transparent wall. His gill slits fluttered with excitement as He-Jin moved through another complex sequence of movements. Her kicks sliced through the air with precision, each punch flowing smoothly into the next. 2 hours, Tech whispered to the gathered crowd. She's been moving like this for 2 hours straight. His scales shifted color slightly, reflecting his amazement. The assembled students watched in silent awe. To many of them, such sustained physical activity seemed impossible. Most species preferred to conserve energy, using it only when necessary for survival. The idea of expending it voluntarily, and with such intensity, challenged their understanding of intelligent behavior. Lin, a floating gas-based being, drifted above the other observers. Their cloudy forms shifted and swirled as they studied He-Jin's movements. "Look at her face," they noted, their translated voice carrying a tone of wonder. "She's completely at peace." Indeed, despite the intensity of her workout, He-Jin's expression showed only serenity. Sweat made her skin shine under the room's adjustable lighting, but her breathing remained steady and controlled. Each movement flowed into the next with practiced ease, like water running over stones. The crowd continued to grow. Students who should have been heading to classes lingered, unable to tear themselves away from the display. Even some of the faculty members found excuses to pass by, their scientific curiosity piqued by this demonstration of human physical capabilities. "Is this really how humans relax?" asked a crystalline student, their facets reflecting the light as they shifted nervously. "It looks more like preparation for combat." "Perhaps it's both," suggested a multi-limbed being, their eyes blinking in sequence as they analyzed the movements. "See how she repeats certain patterns? It's almost like a ritual." The observers began to notice smaller details, how He-Jin's feet never landed heavily, despite the power behind her movements. The way she maintained perfect balance through even the most complex sequences. The rhythm of her breathing, visible in the rise and fall of her chest. Professors from the xenobiology department had started taking notes, fascinated by this display of human physicality. They recorded everything from her heart rate, visible through their specialized sensing equipment, to the temperature changes in her muscles. "The energy output is remarkable," one professor murmured to another. "At this rate, she's burning more calories in one session than most species use in a day." As He-Jin moved into more advanced techniques, the crowd's whispers grew more excited. She executed a series of spinning kicks that seemed to defy gravity, her body moving with fluid grace through motions that looked impossible to most of the observers. "I heard humans do this for fun," said a younger student, their antennae twitching with disbelief. "Not just fun," corrected an older student who had been researching human culture. They believe it helps them maintain mental and physical balance. It's a form of moving meditation. The concept of combining intense physical activity with meditation puzzled many of the observers. In their cultures, meditation was typically a still, quiet practice. The idea that one could find inner peace while performing what looked like combat movements seemed contradictory. Yet there was no denying the evidence before them. He-Jin's face remained peaceful, almost serene, as she moved through her forms. Despite the physical demands of her workout, she showed no signs of distress or aggression. Instead, she seemed to radiate a calm focus that many of the observers found oddly compelling. As the session continued, some of the watching students began to see beyond their initial shock. They noticed the artistry in her movements, the precision and control that spoke of years of dedicated practice. What had first appeared as merely violent or dangerous now revealed itself as something more complex and beautiful. The daily observation of He-Jin's workouts became a sort of unofficial class for many students, an opportunity to study and understand their human classmate better. Without realizing it, He-Jin was teaching them more about human nature than any formal xenobiology lecture could convey. By the time she finished her routine, cooling down with gentle stretches, the crowd had grown to fill the entire corridor. As they dispersed, the observers carried with them a new understanding of human capability and culture, and perhaps a small spark of curiosity about their own physical potential. A shift occurred in the atmosphere of Galactic Central University 3 weeks into He-Jin's daily training sessions. The invisible barrier between observer and participant began to crack, starting with one brave soul who dared to cross it. Doc stood out even among the diverse student body of Ki-Hyu. His metallic skin reflected light in complex patterns, and his 4 arms moved with careful precision as he worked in the quantum engineering lab. Unlike many of his fellow students, he had developed a deep fascination with human physical capabilities. After watching He-Jin's routine for the 10th consecutive day, Doc made his decision. He waited until she finished her session, gathering his courage as she cooled down. His metallic skin rippled with nervous energy as he approached her. "What exactly are you doing?" he asked, his voice modulator carefully adjusted to sound casual. His upper right arm gestured to the practice space, while his lower arms fidgeted slightly. He-Jin looked up from wiping her face with a towel, her smile warm and inviting. It's called Taekwondo. It's both exercise and meditation for us humans. Would you like to learn some basic moves?" The offer caught Doc by surprise. He hadn't expected such an immediate invitation to participate. "But my physiology is quite different from yours," he said, flexing his 4 arms to emphasize the point. "That's what makes it interesting," He-Jin replied, already studying his movement patterns. "We can adapt the forms to work with your natural abilities. Having 4 arms could actually be an advantage for certain techniques." News of Doc's invitation spread quickly through the student body. The next day, 3 more students gathered nervously at the edge of He-Jin's practice space, a floating gas form being named Mira, a silicon-based creature called Tull, and a gravity-manipulating student known as Ven. He-Jin welcomed them all with the same enthusiasm she had shown Doc. She began by teaching them basic breathing exercises, modified to work with each species' respiratory system. For Mira, this meant learning to control their gas density. Tull focused on crystal resonance patterns, while Ven practiced manipulating their personal gravity field. "The key is finding your center," He-Jin explained, demonstrating the simple stance. "Every species has one, even if it's not in the same place as humans." The students watched in fascination as she helped Doc discover new ways to coordinate his 4 arms. Instead of seeing his extra limbs as a challenge, He-Jin turned them into an advantage, creating beautiful flowing patterns that none of them had seen before. Word of these modified training sessions spread through the university. More students began to join, each bringing their unique physiological challenges and capabilities. He-Jin worked with each one patiently, helping them discover how to adapt human movements to their own bodies. A breakthrough came when Toll, the silicon-based student, discovered that certain taekwondo forms created harmonic resonances in their crystalline structure. The vibrations produced a soft, musical tone that added an unexpected dimension to their practice. Doc's progress proved equally impressive. His metallic skin, once a source of self-consciousness, became an asset as he learned to use its reflective properties to create dazzling displays of light during his movements. His forearms moved in complex patterns that even He-Jin hadn't imagined possible. The training sessions evolved into something entirely new, a fusion of human martial arts and alien capabilities. Each student brought their own cultural understanding of movement and meditation, enriching the practice in unexpected ways. Even the more reluctant faculty members had to admit the benefits. They noticed improved focus in their students, better coordination, and a new sense of confidence. Species that had once kept to themselves began interacting more freely, brought together by their shared experience. He-Jin found herself learning as much as she taught. She discovered new ways of thinking about movement and energy from her alien students. Their different perspectives helped her understand her own practice in new ways. The university's common area became a space of cultural exchange, where the boundaries between species began to blur. Students who had once watched from behind transparent walls now moved together in harmony, each in their own way, yet part of something larger. As the weeks passed, the sessions grew more sophisticated. He-Jin introduced partner exercises, carefully matched to ensure safety and compatibility between different species. The sight of a gas-form being and a metallic-skinned student practicing synchronized movements became a common occurrence. The success of these modified training sessions caught the attention of the university administration. What had started as one human's personal exercise routine was transforming into an unprecedented experiment in cross-species physical education. None of this would have happened without Doc's initial courage to ask that simple question. His curiosity had opened a door that many thought would remain forever closed, proving that sometimes the greatest cultural exchanges begin with the smallest steps. The news of He-Jin's growing training group rippled through Galactic Central University like waves in a cosmic pond. Not everyone welcomed this innovative approach to physical education. Among the skeptics, the traditional Movement Conservation Society stood as the strongest voice of opposition. Pell, the society's leader, cut an imposing figure even by alien standards. Their body consisted of shifting geometric patterns that always aligned in perfect symmetry, a testament to their dedication to traditional movement disciplines. They had watched the rise of He-Jin's training group with increasing concern. One morning, as He-Jin's students practiced their adapted forms, Pell appeared at the edge of their training space. The geometric patterns of their form arranged themselves into the most formal configuration, drawing attention from everyone present. "We can no longer ignore what is happening here," Pell announced, their translated voice carrying across the room. "These human methods are disrupting thousands of years of established movement traditions." He-Jin paused her instruction, turning to face Pell with calm interest. Her students gathered behind her, a diverse group united in their newfound confidence. "We propose a friendly competition," Pell continued, their patterns shifting in what their species considered a challenging display. "To show the superiority of established exercise methods, our traditions have served us well for generations." The room fell silent. Even the floating gas-form students seemed to still their constant molecular motion. Everyone waited for He-Jin's response. She smiled, wiping sweat from her brow with a small towel. "A competition sounds wonderful," she replied, surprising many with her enthusiasm. "But perhaps we could make it a celebration of all our different approaches to movement." Pell's patterns wavered slightly, caught off guard by her positive response. "What do you suggest?" He-Jin stepped forward, her movements deliberate and respectful. "Let's design events that showcase everyone's strengths. Endurance, flexibility, coordination, skills that matter to all species, just expressed differently." The proposal sparked immediate interest among both groups. Even some of Pell's followers nodded in agreement, their various anatomies showing signs of approval. Over the next few days, He-Jin and Pell worked together to design the competition. They created events that would challenge participants while remaining safe and fair for all species involved. The university administration, seeing an opportunity for unique research, offered their full support. Training intensified for both groups. He-Jin students discovered new ways to apply their modified techniques. Doc, with his 4 metallic arms, developed a stunning routine that combined traditional movements from his homeworld with human-inspired forms. Mira, the gas form student, learned to compress and expand their molecular structure in rhythmic patterns that mimicked human breathing exercises. Their control grew so precise they could form complex shapes while maintaining perfect stability. The silicon-based student, Tool, refined their crystalline resonance to produce beautiful harmonies during their movements. Their practice sessions became a symphony of sound and light that attracted audiences from across campus. Even the gravity-manipulating student, Ven, found ways to incorporate their natural abilities into the training. They learned to create controlled gravitational fields that enhanced their movements without disrupting others. Pell's group trained with equal dedication, practicing ancient forms passed down through generations. Their movements were precise, traditional, and undeniably beautiful in their own right. As the competition day approached, excitement built throughout the university. Students from all departments requested permission to attend. The event had grown from a simple challenge into a celebration of movement across species. He-Jin spent extra time with each of her students, helping them refine their techniques and build confidence. She reminded them that the true victory lay not in outperforming others, but in showing how different approaches to movement could coexist and enhance each other. The night before the competition, He-Jin gathered her students for a final practice session. Looking at their diverse forms, metallic, gaseous, crystalline, and others, she felt a deep sense of pride. They had created something unique together, something that transcended traditional boundaries. Remember, she told them, tomorrow isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about showing everyone what's possible when we learn from each other. Her students nodded, their various forms expressing agreement in their own unique ways. They had already achieved something remarkable. They had learned to move not just with their bodies, but with understanding and respect for each other's differences. As they left for the evening, He-Jin remained in the practice space, moving through her own forms one last time. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but she knew that win or lose, they had already succeeded in their most important goal, bringing different species together in movement and harmony. The grand exhibition hall of Galactic Central University buzzed with energy on competition day. Students and faculty from every department packed the viewing areas, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of shapes, colors, and textures. The environmental controls worked overtime to maintain comfortable conditions for all species present. Professor Malt stood in the front row of the faculty section, their iridescent skin shifting through shades of anticipation. The hall had been specially modified for the event, with safety fields and adaptive surfaces to accommodate all participants. The Traditional Movement Conservation Society opened the proceedings. Hell led their group through a series of classical forms, their geometric patterns flowing with practiced precision. The audience appreciated the beauty of their traditional movements, centuries of refined technique on display. Then came He-Jin's students. Doc stepped forward first, his metallic skin gleaming under the adaptive lighting. As he began his modified pumsa, the audience fell silent. His 4 arms moved in perfect harmony, creating patterns that honored both his own heritage and his new training. The metallic surface of his body caught and reflected light in ways that turned his performance into a dance of light and shadow. Professor Malt's skin rippled with surprise. Remarkable control, they whispered to a colleague. Look at the precision of those movements. Next came Lin, the gas form student. Many had doubted that a being composed of floating molecules could benefit from human exercise techniques. Lin proved them wrong. Their gaseous form compressed and expanded in controlled rhythms, demonstrating stability that their species rarely achieved. The breathing techniques He-Jin had taught them had transformed their natural state of constant molecular drift into deliberate, beautiful movements. The silicon-based students performed next, their crystalline bodies creating harmonic resonances that filled the hall with melodic tones. Each movement produced a different note, turning their demonstration into a symphony of sound and motion. Even the most delicate species showed unexpected strength. A group of floatarians, known for their fragile crystalline structure, demonstrated how He-Jin's modify techniques had improved their stability and coordination. They moved with newfound confidence, their forms glittering under the lights. Professor Malt's colleague leaned closer. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing? These students aren't just copying human movements. They've created something entirely new." Indeed, each performance showcased a unique fusion of human training principles with natural alien abilities. He-Jin stood at the edge of the performance area, watching her students with quiet pride. She had helped them find their own ways to adapt and grow, rather than forcing them to conform to human standards. The events continued through the day, alternating between traditional forms and modify techniques. The audience watched in fascination as students demonstrated improvements in endurance, flexibility, and coordination. Even Pell's group showed interest in some of the innovative approaches they witnessed. Between demonstrations, Professor Malt circulated among the spectators, gathering reactions. The prevailing sentiment was clear. What they were watching went far beyond simple exercise or combat training. They were witnessing the birth of a new form of movement art, one that celebrated diversity rather than conformity. As the final demonstrations concluded, He-Jin's students gathered for a group performance. They moved in harmony, each in their own way, creating a living portrait of unity and diversity. The audience rose in appreciation, their various forms of applause filling the hall. Professor Malt made their way to where He-Jin stood watching her students. "We were wrong," they admitted, their skin showing colors of respect. "What you've created here isn't just about physical training. It's about breaking down barriers we didn't even know existed." He-Jin smiled, watching as her students mingled with members of the Traditional Movement Conservation Society, sharing techniques and ideas. Even Pell had joined the discussions, their geometric patterns showing signs of curiosity rather than challenge. The event had achieved something greater than any competition could measure. It had shown that different approaches to movement and exercise could coexist and enrich each other. The barriers between species and traditions had begun to crumble, replaced by understanding and mutual respect. As the day drew to a close, Professor Malt made a decision. They would recommend that the university formally recognize these modified training techniques as part of their physical education curriculum. What had started as one human's personal exercise routine had evolved into something that could benefit students across the galaxy. The success of the competition marked not just a victory for He-Jin and her students, but a step forward for the entire university community. They had proven that adaptation and innovation could bridge even the widest gaps between species, creating something beautiful and new in the process. The final days of He-Jin's exchange year at Galactic Central University arrived faster than anyone expected. The once empty common area where she had started her solitary workouts now bustled with activity at all hours, filled with students of various species practicing their adapted movements. Doc had transformed from a curious observer into a skilled instructor. His metallic skin now moved with confident grace as he guided new students through their first forms. The university board had officially appointed him as the first assistant instructor for the newly established Adaptive Movement Arts program. The transformation of the university went beyond just physical education. Species that had once kept their distance now trained together, sharing meals in the cafeteria and forming study groups. The barriers between different beings had softened, replaced by understanding and friendship. Professor Malt organized a farewell ceremony in the Grand Hall. Students from every department attended, their diverse forms filling the space with color and movement. Even members of the Traditional Movement Conservation Society came to show their respect, with Pell leading a special demonstration that combined their classical forms with elements of Hejin's teachings. When you first arrived, Professor Malt addressed the gathering, their iridescent skin glowing with warm colors. Many of us saw only a Deathworlder. We focused on your physical strength and mistook your exercise for aggression. You showed us that what we feared as violent was actually a path to peace. The professor gestured to the assembled students. Your relaxation techniques have brought our diverse student body closer together in ways we never imagined possible. Hejin looked at her students, Doc with his shining metallic arms, Lin's gaseous form swirling with newfound stability, Tull's crystalline structure resonating with quiet harmony. Each had found their own way to adapt human movements to their unique forms, creating something beautiful and new. In the end, she replied, her voice carrying across the silent hall. We all seek the same thing, harmony between body and mind. We just found different paths to reach it. The university had changed in other ways too. The recreation center now featured adaptive equipment designed for multiple species. The medical department had documented unexpected health benefits from the modified training programs. Even the xenobiology curriculum had been updated to include studies of cross-species physical education. Students from other universities began applying for transfer, drawn by the unique program Hejin had helped create. The Galactic Education Board had taken notice, sending observers to study the potential for implementing similar programs across other institutions. On her final morning, Hejin visited the training area one last time. She found Doc already there, teaching a group of new students. His movements flowed with confidence as he demonstrated a four-arm variation of a basic form. The students followed along, each adapting the movements to their own bodies. Teacher Hejin, Doc called out, his metallic skin gleaming with respect. Would you join us for one last session? The group moved together, each in their own way, yet united in purpose. Gas-form beings swirled in controlled patterns, crystalline structures resonated with gentle harmonies, and beings of all shapes and sizes found their own rhythm in the dance of movement. As she prepared to leave, Hejin received one final surprise. The university had created a permanent display in the main hall, showcasing holovids of different species performing their adapted movements. The installation would serve as both inspiration and instruction for future students. Your legacy will continue, Professor Malt assured her. What you've started here will spread across the galaxy, showing others that differences in form don't have to mean differences in understanding. Hejin's approach to relaxation had indeed changed perspectives across the galaxy, one peaceful warrior at a time. What had begun as a simple need to maintain her exercise routine had evolved into something far more significant, a bridge between species, a way to find common ground through movement and respect. As she stepped onto the transport pad for her journey home, Hejin looked back at her students one last time. They stood tall, or floated high, or shimmered bright, each in their own way showing the confidence and pride they had discovered through their training. The legacy of the human exchange student would live on, not just in the official curriculum or the adapted equipment, but in the hearts and movements of every being who discovered that what looked like combat training to some could be a path to peace for all.